Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over the unique item known as the Greaves of the Empty Tomb. These are a pair of unique boots that can roll ancestral or sacred, depending on where you find them. To find them, you need to be in at least World Tier 3, where they can drop as sacred items, or World Tier 4, where they can drop as ancestral. These particular items do have some very interesting effects, and as with all unique items, the effects are stuck on these items. I can't take them off. This one is +2 evade max charges, which is nice for Necromancers specifically, because we don't have a lot of movement abilities, so having more evade charges is definitely nice. 36 intelligence, which is kind of-ish the main stat for Necromancers. Not really. I don't really see it as that. My character is utilizing dexterity a lot for crit because his whole build is built around crit. I mean, I literally have 32.8% crit right now, and that's not even the all of it. So my crit actually goes like way further than that. I believe I'm actually sitting at something like 52, and then I also have another 19, is it? Yeah, 19. So I've got 52 and 19, or 52 plus 19, so what is that, like 60, 70, like 3 or something like that. It's pretty ridiculous. My crit rate's pretty ridiculous. And it goes up a little bit higher than that, actually, with specific skills. So I almost have like nearly 100% crit rate for this character. Which is kind of one of the cool ways that you can beef up your damage in a myriad of ways. Obviously, damage here is nice, and damage here is nice, and, you know, yeah. 6.8% lucky hit chance with shadow damage. So this is basically 4 shadow characters, obviously. The boots are actually designed for a shadow character, a person who's doing shadow damage. Basically, this means that you're going to have a increased lucky hit chance for any attack that comes in, or that you do with lucky hit. So, for instance, if you're using Sever, which is the ability in question, it has a lucky hit chance of 24%, which means that it's automatically going to get a bump in its lucky hit chance by a specific amount. Like, let's use an ability, for instance. I'm trying to think if I have any lucky hit on me. This isn't really a lucky hit character, but I probably have something. Guess not. But basically, let's run a calculation real quick so you can kind of see how this would work and how much this would actually enhance your character. So let's say I was using Sever, which is a 24% lucky hit chance. So 0.24 is the correct number. That's 24%. Then we would multiply that by whatever the lucky hit ability that we have is. So, for instance, let's say we were using a 20% chance ability, so that would be 0.2, which would give us a total percent chance of 4.8, which is not really that high. However, with shadow damage skills, with this particular ability, we have a plus 6.8, which is going to be times 1 point, and then this as a decimal point, which is going to be 0.068. So 0.68. So that enhances our 4.8% chance to a 5.1% chance when using shadow skills. Not exactly the biggest buff. We also have 12.5% damage reduction from enemies that are affected by shadow damage. And obviously, as a shadow necromancer, you're going to be pooping shadow blight puddles all over the damn place. And then we come to the meat and potatoes, or actually it also has shadow damage over time increase as well. Now all of these roll, as you can clearly see, so the essence cost reduction rolls between 4.2 to 7. The lucky hit chance rolls between 4.4 to 10. The 12.5% reduction from enemies rolls between 7 and 14. So it's, you know, it's a, yeah, there's a lot of rolls here. And as you upgrade it, if you upgrade an item, you definitely will get better stats from it. Like this ring, for instance, has, you know, like 27%, up to 35% vulnerability, etc. This is the kind of stuff that you can get. Then we come to the special effect. So the special effect deals with Sever specifically. Now, Sever is a shadow damage skill, but it doesn't really do a lot of, like, shadow damage over time, and that's really the thing. So when you go out here and you actually utilize Sever, you'll notice that it basically involves sending a skeleton out. The skeleton goes out, he dishes out his damage, and then he comes back, right? Now, the thing is this particular item is based around shadow damage over time. So what does it do? Well, it gives you some shadow damage over time so that you have that. So when you put these on, instead of just having your regular Sever, now your Sever is going to put a blight trail on the ground wherever the Sever goes, which basically means you're going to get a pretty nice damage over time effect, which is going to come from these boots while you're using what could possibly be your main ability. Now, Sever also has some very nice alternative effects, as you can see here. Sever damages enemies along its path for 25% of its initial damage. And then on top of that, we also have, you can make enemies vulnerable, or you can go with the Sever deals 2% increased damage for each minion you have upon cast. And basically all this is if Sever is one of your main abilities, this is definitely a way that you can enhance Sever to have some additional damage output. The damage over time that it offers is pretty considerable. Let's take a look at it real quick. Honestly, I do think Sever is a pretty cool ability. It's not the ability that I chose for my character. But if you were a shadow damage character and you were utilizing things like the Shadow Blight key passive, which does some pretty interesting damage, honestly, very, very nice for any shadow damage character, obviously. Because shadow damage infects enemies with Shadow Blight for 2 seconds. You and your minions deal 10% bonus damage to anybody with Shadow Blight. Every 10th time an enemy receives shadow damage from you or your minions while they are affected by Shadow Blight, they take an additional shadow damage, which basically just adds in more shadow damage to infect more monsters. And you also have all of the very nice shadow passives. You got the damaging enemies with darkness skills increases movement speed. You've got the one that is when you damage enemies with darkness skills, they take 2% increased shadow damage. You got the other one, which is darkness skills deal 3% bonus damage to enemies who are slowed, 3% bonus damage to enemies who are stun mobilized. And then finally, the darkness skills have up to a 15% chance to stun for a second. So, Sever can be beefed up pretty considerably, which allows it to do some pretty crazy things. And once you get it like fully buffed up to the point where, you know, you're wearing your Greaves of the Empty Tomb and you have all your beautiful effects, you know, you're applying Shadow Blight to pretty much everybody with just simply the Sever ability, which is actually pretty darn cool. Because I think most Shadow Blight users would probably be using Blight instead, because Blight has a damage over time effect on it, right? Well, if we look at Blight's damage right now, and of course this is without any, you know, like real gear affecting it, is about 1,288 to 1,574 damage, and leaves behind a defiled area dealing 3,818 damage over 6 seconds, right? So it's got a damage over time of about 4K, right? So we take a look at Sever. Sever has a damage over time as well now. So if we're using Sever, Sever now has a damage over time of basically about 1.5k every single time you use it. So it's not like absolutely garbage. It also has an actual physical hit as well. And if you compare it to the size of Blight, especially if you're utilizing this correctly, because I would assume that if you're utilizing this ability, you're going to want to utilize it as far away as possible, because the further away the monster is that you hit with this ability, the better it's going to be in terms of damage output, because obviously it has a larger area that it can cover. And that is a kind of a consideration with this, whereas Blight, on the other hand, is a circle. Obviously, it's just a single circle that, yes, you can place it directly underneath the target, but it does have a limited range. It only covers... Oops. It only covers a specific area, obviously. And, you know, it's not bad, because obviously it does its thing, and you can cast it multiple times and stack it underneath the monster's feet. But in terms of, like, damage output, I feel like the Sever one will probably out DPS Blight, just simply because you can spam it over a larger area. Now, Blight, on the other hand, is probably going to do much better against bosses because Blight can sit right underneath the boss and just continually damaging them over and over again. I do plan on eventually making a Necromancer specifically around maybe like a melee aspect. I thought that would be pretty cool. But this would probably be one of the abilities that I go with because Sever is a pretty neat ability. Probably pair that up with Reap. I think that's pretty much it for this. Only thing left to do is to read the flavor text. The massive door to my family's crypt, which had taken a dozen men to close, was thrown open. Had I known the horrors to come, I never would have set foot inside. The Ebon Pages, Canto 1, verse 7? And this particular item does have a specific appearance. You know what? Let's go take a look at the appearance real quick. It is a Necromancer only item, and we can look at the booties. We can look at the appearance of the booties.
I'm not ready yet.
Alright, so if we put the booties on, and then we go to default look on the boots. As you can see here, we have kind of like a bloodied bone sort of embedded into the top of the Sabaton. Like, this is definitely kind of like just like your standard Greaves, but with some accoutrements, which is kind of gruesome looking. Yeah. Why does the Necromancer get all the, like, gothic armor? Like, this looks like a pair of gothic armor boots. Like with the articulation and everything, and then pretty neat. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and girls watching my videos, and as always, keep watching.